My first memory of Grandma George would probably be a collection of memories. I remember when we lived in Longview, when we'd go to her house, and she would have the most wonderful toys and the most wonderful treats, and she had the biggest hill to ride down on the big wheels. That was super fun. We'd do that for hours, going up the hill and down the hill, up the hill and down the hill. And she had treats in like 4 or 5 different places around her kitchen. At our house, we only had treats maybe in one place, and we weren't ever allowed to go near it, else Mom would get upset. But Grandma, she had all these places for treats, and we could eat them to our heart's content usually. And she had other fun toys, like a little clown that you hooked up a hose to, and it had a hat that would go up in the air from the water. It was super fun to play in that. And also Grandpa George was always super fun too, because he taught me about computer games and how computer games worked, like Battle Chess and the Three Stooges, and also a love of Star Trek. The George grandparents' house was the place to be. It was always super fun.
My first memory of Grandma George has to be all the holidays. I remember a vague memory of flying down there. I believe it was for Christmas, and Tessa was there. She was wearing like a Jasmine costume or something. I don't know. But I just remember how awesome Grandma George's house was. Again, I remember doing Easter there early on and having such awesome Easter egg hunts and so forth.
The first time I met Grandma George was General Conference of 2014, October. Sunday afternoon session. And she had a bunch of snacks out on the counter, and she was watching President Uchtdorf. So everyone needed to be very quiet. Afterwards, we could continue munching and snacking. So I thought it was very funny that she was an old school grandma who likes to love people and serve them and have food out for them. And a very interesting relationship with President Uchtdorf. So.
My first memory of Grandma George is the Big Red Boat. When I was 4 years old, we all did the Big George family trip on the Big Red Boat, and the times where I was hanging spoons on my nose and showed her and I wanted her, and it made her smile. I remember that, and that great opportunity to almost get left behind as well by my dad. That would have been unfortunate. But my favorite memory of Grandma, of me with her, are the time she would hide Easter eggs around her house and we have to go and find them, or also the time she would do the streamer balls with the prizes during Christmas time, where you'd roll it to each other and whatever rolled out was the prize you got. I love those little games that she did. They were really fun, and her so creative, and I really appreciate the time Grandma took to do that for us as her grandchildren.
My first impression of Grandma George was, well, first of all, she was the second George that I met besides Matt. So I was really nervous because I just started dating Drew, and then I met his grandma. But she was super nice. One of the first things out of her mouth was that she had chocolate everywhere and that I was free to eat any of the chocolate that I found in the house.
Some of my favorite first memories with Grandma had to be when I would go over to her house and she wanted to share some of her favorite VHS videos and movies with me. So we would always watch Mr. Bean and Shirley Temple. And she would teach me the songs and tell me the stories of how they would watch these during the wartime era, and then it kind of distracted everyone from all the sad things that were going on at that time. And then she would get into talking about her history and stuff like that, and so it was always so fun to learn about what it was like when she was my age.
So many great stories. A lot of the best ones have to do with my dad and how she reacted to my dad by, like, when he would misbehave in the car, she would throw shoes at him whenever he was misbehaving. She'd be in the front, he'd be in the back, she'd just throw her shoe back there at him. That was always a great story. Or the time that he and his friends were pretending to pull ropes across the road at intersections. And then somebody picked up Dad and took him home. Back in those days, that was okay, you know. Where do you live? I want to talk to your mom. And then he took him home, and she was like, hey, we did that when I was a kid. And just laughed at the guy, kind of.
My favorite story involves Grandma George. Well, during my days at BYU, I'd go and visit her, and I really enjoyed asking her about her life and when she grew up. And I heard a crazy story from her recently. I think she was right after high school. She was like 18 or 19. Her and all of her lady friends moved down to like Southern California for the summer. And one of their friends got picked up by a guy late night at a party. It was up in like the hills, and she like ran away from the guy because the guy was like scary and predator, and they had to like search for her friend in the woods at night and find her. It was crazy. And I was like, is this my grandma? That she was going off with these lady friends doing crazy things? And yeah, she's the one who told me the story, so.
As a teenager, she ran away with her friends to California for some sort of crazy adventure. And sometime before or after, she was two-timing a couple of guys.
My favorite story that I've heard about Grandma George is her story about when she had to go to the doctor and get her surgery, that she refused to take off her garments, and so they let her just hang them on her shoulders, and so she could still have them on while she had the surgery.
My favorite story involving Grandma George is probably the story of, I think it was Calvin had been, I guess, gotten into some trouble with one of his classmates or something like that, and the classmate's dad went and was rattling off to Grandma George at all these terrible things that Calvin had been doing the whole summer. And at the end of his rambling, Grandma George tells him that Calvin has been in Hawaii the whole time and was not actually there. It's probably one of my favorites.
There's so many good stories involving Grandma George, but my favorite one would have to be when I was there about a year and a half ago, I think. And she was just making so many good one-liners and telling so many good jokes of how she just really, really wanted a gay man to take her out to dinners and stuff like that. And I'm like, Grandma, you've been a widow for like 2 decades. Like, let's get this going. So we sat there for over an hour answering all the questions to make an LDS singles account. And she got one, and there's single men looking in her area still, but she still refuses them all. And there's some really good personal questions, and I got to really know my grandma, like how many times she wants to have sex a week. It's 0 for reference, guys. She's too old. But it was just so funny just getting to see her and like her personality really come out, and like of what she actually kind of looks for in the man, and it was just a fun time. It was great. And I still get emails to this day.
Some things I've learned from Grandma George. Now, this question probably has the most extensive list attached to it, because I lived with Grandma George for a few years, and she was always eager to teach me new lessons. She taught me how to turn off the lights before you go to bed at night if you're the last one up, because it wastes electricity, especially in the Great Depression of the 2000s. So I learned about that so we could save electricity. She also taught me how to maintain a steady girlfriend, because if you don't have a steady girlfriend, you magically become homosexual after 2 weeks of not having a girlfriend. I didn't know that until I met Grandma George. She taught me that you become homosexual after not having a significant other for 2 weeks. And so I could have ended up in a different position that I'm in now.
I've learned from Grandma George, change. It's okay to change. Growing up as a littler kid, I always thought she had really strict rules and really strict belief system, and it's kind of old school. But again, my time spending more intimate time with her during my college days, I've come to find that no, she's really progressive. She's learned to change and become better and improve herself even at her age, and I've really respected that.
From Grandma George, I've learned to always be happy. No matter what circumstance, there's always a reason to smile.
Some things that I've learned from Grandma George are that it's most important to be enthusiastic in your life, because when you're enthusiastic and have a positive attitude, you affect those around you with that same attitude, and it helps them put a smile on their face. And I know that Grandma's a great example of that and does that. She always has a good attitude and helps brighten other people's days.
Definitely, I have learned from Grandma George that chocolate makes you immortal and that it is its own food group and is a reasonable food for every meal.
Some things I've learned from Grandma George, well, first off, chocolate makes you live forever. It is legit the fountain of youth. And so I bathe in it on a weekly basis, just like my grandma taught me. Some other things she's taught me is to be appreciative for what I have and to be very appreciative of veterans, because Grandpa George had fought in World War II and had been very involved with the Air Force, and that we should always show our gratitude for this country and for our freedom and to take it seriously. So it's always good, and always take like elections and voting seriously, and to watch Dancing with the Stars every week.
There are several things in my personality that I see that came from Grandma George. Grandma George is famous for telling you how it is, and I always realized that about her, but at the same time I was developing that same attribute, and I didn't really realize that it probably came from her, that she'll just tell you how it is, straight-faced, super blunt, and I'm exactly the same way. I think it's weird when you just tell someone how something is and they get offended or upset. You're just telling them how it is, and Grandma George is just like that. Whether it be something that might be, some people might consider rude, or maybe some people might consider a little bit private. Why be quiet about it? Why be careful about it when you can just be blunt and forward about it? That's what Grandma George taught me, and that's how I see her. I see in my personality that I do that all the time. Everyone tells me how blunt I am.
Now, a lot of people compare myself as the only comparable person who can eat as much chocolate as Grandma George, and that's what I see in her personality and my personality. We both just love chocolate unconditionally.
That aspect which I've learned from her, I've seen very much in Adam. He's always happy, very energetic. I think it's because they share an addiction to chocolate. That might be where their exorbitant energy comes from. But I'm grateful.
In my personality, I do see parts of Grandma George. Every George, there's a part of Grandma George, and definitely her outgoing and enthusiasm. Not her love for chocolate, unfortunately. I'm quite the opposite end for that one. But I feel that I am outgoing just like Grandma is, and very spunky as well.
A part of Grandma George that I see in Drew is that he likes chocolate, but it's a little bit shifted because he likes white chocolate more than normal chocolate.
I would say I do see parts of Grandma George in my personality. My ultimate goal is to become her one day, to be the literal Grandma George, but I might have a different last name, but oh well, because she is so funny and so great and always has chocolate, and I really tried to get my humor to be as top-notch as hers, but it's hard. I'm trying to get there. We'll see. And I do like to stay up late, which she does too. Yep. Oh, and we both have arm flower that we play with like this and let other people play with. Like this. And she lets her grandkids play with it, and I let my friends play with it. Yeah.
How would I describe Grandma George to future generations? I would describe her as a chocoholic. I would describe her as immortal. because nothing ever seems to slow her down or stop her. Something slow her down slightly, but nothing ever seems to stop her. And I would describe her as someone who's caring and loving and understanding and patient. Maybe not always patient, but she tries her best to be patient, especially with what she's got, She has Calvin as a son. That's like a test for anybody's patience, let alone the mother of Calvin George. Like, lots of people who have met him are like, I wonder what his mother's like to have to deal with that all the time. So she must be an amazing woman, and she is. She is an amazing woman, so it all works out,
How will I describe Grandma George to future generations is with excitement, obviously. I always remember going to Grandma's house and having tons of food there, and tons of candy especially, and her just being always so nice and fun. And on a more in-depth level, I would love to describe her as someone who changed over time into becoming the best person she possibly could. She never stopped her progression. And I love that about her, and I can't wait to share that with my own kids and our future generations.
I would describe Grandma George to future generations as a very strong and independent woman. A very opinionated woman. She always has her convictions, and she's courageous to defend them, and I love that about her. And she always fights and strives to be self-reliant, and a very dedicated woman to her family as well.
The Lord of Chocolate. She lived energy off of chocolate, but besides that, very loving and caring, and is spent her life dedicated to serving others, and that's what I always found most endearing about her.
I will describe Grandma George to future generations as a chocolate lover, chocolate giver, chocolate sharer, and just amazing. She's wonderful.
I would describe Grandma George to future generation, like my kids and grandkids, hopeful grandkids and kids. She's pretty undescribable, but amazing, funny, witty, something we should all strive to be. The best cook, does not like men in the kitchen, but they can clean up in the kitchen afterwards, that's allowed. And that she really taught me a lot about history and how important it is to understand where other people are coming from and how wise people who've lived through a lot are, and like how we should always be listening and learning from them and asking them questions, because when I do get her started on a role, I will learn so much from her, and I appreciate it. Also, like another favorite memory kind of that I would share with future grandkids is like one time she went and she got out these newspapers that she saved from all these significant events, like from World War II, after it was over, and after the bombs dropped, and when JFK got shot, and she would describe exactly where she was and when she got those newspapers. I'm like, that's so cool. And I'm thinking, man, I should be doing that now so I can show my future generations the newspapers I got, like when Trump became president and stuff like that, because that's going to be important. My kids are going to be asking me about it, my grandkids, and so that was so much fun and so interesting.
What I'm currently doing with my life right now is I've recently graduated from the university. I have 2 degrees, one in folklore and the other in cinema studies. I focused on production and film theory, or analyzing film, or different aspects. But my day-to-day work right now is being a home care provider. I'm approaching 10 years, and I have a client right now. I live with the client and his father, so most of my day consists of waking up in the morning, going and taking care of him. I get a call from him during the day, I go out and take care of him. I get a call from him again in the day, go out and take care of him. I get another call from him later in the day, go take care of him. Bring him food, bring him anything else he needs, help him with his medication, and it's the last thing I do before I go to bed. It's basically my client is my world right now. It's what I do. And I only get paid for a small fraction of that, but I feel like I really enjoy serving my client and his father. They're both Well, his father's very sweet, and the client has his moments, but he can be sweet when he needs to be. So that's basically what I'm doing in my life right now. I recently bought a trailer, a fifth wheel, and I'm looking for a truck to buy so I can travel America in the next year or so. So we'll see how that goes.
Now, we just moved from California to Eugene, Oregon, and we love the Northwest. All the hiking and the trails and everything. I got a fun job at a restaurant. Susan got a more adult job doing with my brother Drew. And we're just having a blast living around family. Of course, we're headed off now to go live in the Dominican Republic for a bit, live close to Susan's family, and then head off to Costa Rica, Latin America. So hopefully, don't be too afraid, Grandma, if you hear this, that we're driving through Mexico and stuff. But it all will be good, because the Lord's with us.
So I am currently jobless as of 2 days ago. And we are about to embark on one of the funnest adventures ever, where we will basically be country hopping for the next few years. We are excited.
So right now in life, I am spending trying to get my degree in human physiology at University of Oregon. I start University of Oregon this spring. I'm working as well as a credit representative, working with Spanish as well. And I'm married to Tabitha. We've been married for over a year now. Had some fun times. Hopefully in a few years we'll be back in Washington, hopefully getting prepared for physical therapy school.
Currently, I'm in school. I'm taking 21 credits this term, and I'm graduating next term, which I'm super excited about. And then I will be spending 2.5 months in Costa Rica with or not with Adam and Susan, working on my Spanish, and then I will be coming back here and going back to school to get my teaching certificate. And then Drew and I will probably move to Washington after he graduates, and we'll see where life goes from there.
Hi, I'm Lizzie. I am currently 19 years old, single, looking to mingle. I go to UW, it's in Seattle, and there's lots of hipsters, and I'm drowning in them. And I currently study engineering, just like my grandpa. I didn't find that out till after I started studying it, but that's still cool. And I don't know. I play on the rugby team there, so I like tackling people. And it all started when I was a youth with my brothers, and they taught me well. And I am missing a knuckle, which is very important in life. I ride my bicycle, and sometimes the bus. I work at catering and at a hospital right now. Not catering in a hospital, separate part-time job, so I'm in school.
Chocolate.
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 say, can they be that close? Just let me state for the record, we're giving love in a family dose. We are family. Hey, I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Sing it to me. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Living life is fun, and we've just begun to get our share of this world's delight. High hopes we have for the future and our goals in sight. We know we don't get depressed. Here's what we call our golden rule. Have faith in you and the things you do. You won't go wrong. Oh no, this is our family jewel. We are family. Sing it to me. I got all my sisters with me. Sing it to me. We are family. I can hear you, guys. Get up, everybody, and sing. We have faith in you and the things you do. Hey, hey, I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, y'all. Get up, everybody, and sing. Hey, hey, we are family. I got my sisters with me. I got all my sisters with me. Everybody, we are family.
Animals, crackers in my soup. Monkeys and rabbits, loop a loop. Gosh, oh gee, I forgot the lyrics. I don't know. I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle, here is my spout. I don't know. The end.